He said, "This won't last." I'd meant it as a joke. A careless thing to say between the hiss of the espresso machine and the flicker of the afternoon light on her hands. She'd looked up, slow, steady, and replied, "Then let's make it eternal." I laughed then, because what else do you do when someone twice your age says something like that? Eyes steady as if she's testing how much of you can stand still under her gaze. But the truth is, I haven't been able to stop hearing it since. I met her at the small repair shop I work at. Nothing special, just a dim, oil-scented corner of the city where fans groan and radios buzz with static. She brought in an old record player. Real wood, heavy as memory. Said it had been her husband's. Or maybe just someone who thought he was. I didn't ask what she meant. People say things like that sometimes when they don't want to talk about them. She had this composed way of standing, like she was balancing on invisible glass, steady but fragile if you looked too long. A silk scarf knotted loosely at her neck. No ring, just clean hands and a quiet voice that carried like smoke. When I tested the record player, it sputtered, groaned, then came alive with a low, trembling tune. She closed her eyes. For a second, she wasn't in that room, and I didn't know if I was supposed to look away or memorize every second of it. "Can you fix it?" she asked when she opened her eyes. I shrugged. "I can try." "Trying," she said softly, "is a better promise than most people make." And just like that, she'd turned a casual repair into something else, something that hummed under my skin long after she left. She came back a few days later. Brought coffee. Black for me, warm milk for herself. Said she didn't know what mechanics liked to drink, but guessed it wasn't tea. She was right. We talked, mostly about nothing. The kind of talk that feels like walking close to the edge of something you're not supposed to name. She asked about music. I asked if she still listened to records. "Not really," she said. "I just like the sound of something trying to last." I didn't understand then, but I nodded like I did. It was raining the next time she stopped by. I hadn't finished the repair, but she didn't seem to care. She just stood near the doorway, hair damp, watching me work. "Do you always focus this much?" she asked. "Only when someone's watching." That made her smile. Not the kind you wear for politeness, but the kind that slips out before you can stop it. Then came the silence. A long one. Not awkward exactly, just charged. The air between us felt alive, like the hum before a song starts. She reached for the record player, fingers brushing mine. Quick, unplanned. It wasn't a spark, not really. More like static, the kind that stays on your skin even after you pull away. Before she left, she turned back at the door. "You know," she said, "people your age don't usually listen to music like this." "Maybe," I said. "I'm just trying to hear what everyone else forgot." She paused. "Then you'll like the way this story ends." And she walked out. Just like that, leaving the scent of rain and something heavier I couldn't name. I stood there long after she was gone, staring at the record player. It still played the same crackling song, the one that seemed to skip, almost stutter, right at the part where it should have been perfect. And somehow, I knew that was the part I'd remember most. The second time she came by, she didn't bring the record player, just herself, and a book she said she thought I'd like. "It's not about music," she said, placing it carefully on the counter, "but it understands silence." Her tone was light, but her eyes, that faint tiredness behind them, gave her away. It was the kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from holding yourself together for too long. The shop was quieter that day. The rain had passed, leaving the air sticky and slow. She leaned against the workbench, watching me tinker with a radio older than both of us combined. I could feel her there, not in a distracting way, but like gravity. "Do you ever take breaks?" she asked. "Sometimes," I said, wiping my hands. "When someone interesting gives me a reason to." She gave a small smile. It almost stayed, But then something flickered across her face. Hesitation, maybe. "I'm not sure I'm the kind of reason you want," she murmured, mostly to herself. For a second, I didn't know what to say. The way she said it wasn't dramatic. It was simple, factual, like she'd already lived through the consequences of being someone's reason once. So I didn't try to fix it with words. I just tightened a screw, pretending to focus, while her reflection wavered faintly in the metal casing beside my hands. She watched me for a long time. "You remind me of someone," she said finally. "Someone who believed in things that didn't last." "Maybe he just didn't wait long enough," I said. Her breath caught, just slightly. Then she laughed, soft and uneven, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. It wasn't the laugh of someone being charmed. It was the laugh of someone remembering what it used to feel like to be seen. I noticed her hands as she spoke, steady when she gestured, but restless when they fell still. Her fingers brushed the spine of the book she'd brought, over and over. A small, nervous loop she probably didn't even know she was doing. There was a smudge of ink on her thumb. I wondered if she'd been writing something, or if she'd stopped herself halfway through. "Do you always notice this much?" she asked suddenly, catching me looking. "Only when it matters." The silence that followed felt heavier than before. Like both of us knew what we weren't saying, and neither wanted to be the one to say it first. When she left, the bell above the door chimed. A clean, fragile sound that didn't match the weight it left behind. But just before stepping out, she turned back, her expression unreadable. "Next time," she said, "don't fix the things too quickly. Some of us need them broken a little longer." And then she was gone. I stood there, the faint warmth of her voice still clinging to the air, thinking about how her words felt less like advice and more like a confession she didn't mean to give. It was a Thursday night, one of those evenings that felt stolen, the kind where the sky forgets what color it's supposed to be. She'd stopped by again, claiming she was just passing through, but she stayed long enough for the shop to close. The lights buzzed faintly above us. I offered to walk her to her car, but she shook her head, said she didn't mind the quiet. We ended up sitting on the workbench, side by side, the radio still half dismantled in front of us. Her sleeve brushed mine once, twice, and she didn't move it away. "I used to come here a lot," she said, voice barely above a hum. "Not this shop exactly, just places like it, where things could be fixed." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Funny how that doesn't work with people. I wanted to ask who she meant, but the look on her face, a kind of soft withdrawal, told me not to. So I said nothing, just handed her the screwdriver she wasn't asking for. Her fingers brushed mine, lingering a fraction too long before pulling away. The rain started again, not hard, just enough to sound like static against the metal roof. She looked up, distracted by it. There was a moment where her guard slipped. A tiny exhale, the kind that comes when you forget to hold yourself together. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Leaving what?" "Whatever this is." Her gesture was vague. The shop, the town, maybe her own life. "Sometimes," I said, "but then something, or someone, keeps me." Her eyes flickered toward me. It was quick, but I caught it. The air shifted, heavier, closer. Her phone rang. A man's name flashed on the screen. She hesitated, thumb hovering, then turned it face down. "He's persistent," she said. "Boyfriend." She almost laughed. "Ex-husband. Or maybe just an old habit that still knows how to find me." There was a pause, the kind that felt like standing at the edge of something sharp. "You don't have to explain," I said quietly. "I know." Her voice softened. "That's why I almost do." The rain picked up. I noticed a strand of hair fall across her face. She didn't move to fix it. I did, without thinking. My hand stopped halfway, suspended in air, close enough to feel the warmth radiating off her skin. Her breath caught. Mine did too. For a heartbeat. There was nothing, no sound, no reason, no air. Just that impossible stillness where wanting and restraint collide. Then she whispered, "You should lock up. It's getting late." Her tone was even, but her eyes betrayed her, that flicker of confusion, of something almost said. She stood, smoothing her coat, avoiding my gaze. The distance between us felt wrong now, like something vital had been stretched too far. At the door, she hesitated again. "You're too kind," she said. "It's dangerous." Before I could reply, she stepped into the ring. I locked the door after her, hands trembling, and watched her silhouette blur into the dark. The screwdriver she'd been holding still sat on the bench, a small, ordinary thing. But when I picked it up, it was warm. She didn't come for a week. I told myself I didn't notice, but I caught myself glancing at the door each time the bell rang, pretending I was just waiting for a customer. By the time she finally walked in again, something in the air felt off balance. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired a nap could fix, the kind that sits behind the eyes, quiet and old. "I shouldn't be here," she said before I could even say hello. I set my tools down slow. "But you are." She exhaled, the sound thin and brittle. "That's the problem." We stood there, the hum of the old radio between us. She wasn't meeting my eyes, just tracing her finger along the edge of the counter, leaving faint trails in the dust. "Do you want me to go?" I asked. "I don't know what I want," she said, finally looking up. "And I think that's worse." Her words hung there, raw, fragile. I took a step closer. Not enough to close the distance, just enough for her to feel it. "You don't have to decide anything," I said. "That's the thing," she whispered. "I used to always know where the line was. And then you showed up, and now everything's blurred." She leaned against the counter, folding her arms. I could tell it was to stop her hands from trembling. "You remind me of what I used to feel like," she said quietly. "Before everything got quiet." I swallowed. "That's not fair." "I know." Her smile was small, apologetic. "You make me feel young and foolish and alive, and it terrifies me." For a long moment, there was nothing but silence, a silence that felt like it had its own pulse. "I don't want to ruin anything," I said. "But pretending there's nothing here, that's starting to feel worse." Her breath caught, and she closed her eyes. "Don't say that," she murmured. "Please." "Why not?" "Because if you do, I'll believe you." The honesty in her voice gutted me. She opened her eyes then. No defenses, no practiced grace. Just a woman who had spent years pretending she didn't still need to be seen. I wanted to reach for her, to do something, anything, that might ease the weight hanging between us. But she shook her head, almost imperceptibly. So we just stood there, two people on opposite sides of the same unspoken thing, breathing in sync, but miles apart. "After a long time," she said, almost to herself, "we keep standing in the same room, pretending it means nothing. But it does. And that's what scares me." The air between us tightened, sharp and delicate. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. She looked at me then, really looked, as if memorizing something she was about to let go of. Then she said, softly, "You make me want to stay, but I don't trust what that means anymore." And before I could answer, she turned away, leaving the room filled with everything we didn't say, and the silence that said all of it. She came by on a Sunday, unannounced, unguarded, carrying something wrapped in a scarf. I'd just opened the shutters, the morning light still weak and colorless. "I didn't mean to intrude," she said. "You never do," I replied, though the words felt heavier than I intended. She set the bundle down gently. The scarf unfurled to reveal an old photograph, slightly torn at the edges, corners faded to amber. A man and a woman stood beside a record player, smiling. She was the woman. The man wasn't me. "I found this last night," she said, sitting down on the stool near the counter. Didn't think it would still make me feel anything. I glanced at the picture. He looked about my age, maybe younger. Sharp eyes, careless grin. He looks, I stopped myself. Alive, she finished, almost smiling. He was, until he wasn't. She reached out, fingers brushing the image as if she could still feel the warmth of that moment through the paper. He died in a car crash, she said. I was 26. He was 24. We were going to leave everything behind. The city, our jobs, our families. We thought love was enough to outrun the world. Her voice cracked, just slightly. Turns out, the world doesn't negotiate. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice not to break something fragile in the air between us. She took a breath. You remind me of him. Not in the way you look, in the way you wait. The way you listen like you're trying to understand what people don't say. I looked down. The screwdriver in my hand suddenly felt foreign. That's not fair, I said quietly. I know, she said, and I hate that it's true. For a while, we just sat there. The light shifted across the floor, slow, tender. She turned the photograph over, tracing the handwritten words on the back. Promise me, we'll last longer than the music. Did you? I asked before I could stop myself. She smiled sadly. No, but I still play the song. Something inside me shifted then. Not jealousy, not pity, just an ache I couldn't name. I realized she wasn't holding on to the man in the picture. She was holding on to the version of herself that once believed she could love without fear. And maybe that's what she saw in me. Not a person, but a doorway back to that forgotten feeling. She reached across the counter, her hand trembling slightly, and touched mine. Barely, just a whisper of warmth. I don't want to make you carry this, she said. But I needed you to know who you've been speaking to. I nodded, unable to look away. Before she left, she turned to the record player, now fixed, perfectly humming. The last song it played before he died, she said softly, was the one you repaired. And with that, she smiled, not with joy, but with relief. Like someone setting down a memory that had finally stopped burning. The door closed behind her, and the music kept playing. I stood there listening, realizing the room felt both emptier and somehow more alive than ever before. She arrived late that evening, carrying the rain in her hair and a faint scent of coffee that seemed to follow her through the door. I didn't ask where she'd been, didn't need to. Something in the way she hesitated at the threshold told me this visit wasn't casual. We didn't speak at first. I was repairing a small speaker, her presence quiet behind me like a pulse I could feel but not name. You've been patient, she said finally, breaking the hum of the old lights. I learned from someone who couldn't wait. I replied, not looking up. Her laugh was soft, unguarded, but it carried weight. The weight of all the days we'd both ignored the obvious pull between us. She walked closer, hands clasped in front of her. I could feel her watching, the way she always did, alert, careful, yet somehow relaxed enough to let me in without realizing it. Do you regret it? She asked, voice almost a whisper. Regret what? This. You. Us, standing here like this for months without saying anything. I set the screwdriver down and finally looked at her. The tension in her shoulders, the faint crease at the corner of her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze then met it again. It all told me the truth I'd been hiding from myself. No, I said. I don't think I could regret it. Not after this long. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she didn't try to hide the relief, or the fear, or the curiosity. She just let herself be, fully, without pretense. We sat on the low counter together, not touching, not speaking, just letting the silence stretch between us like it was meant to. The old radio played softly, filling the small room with warmth. Then, almost without thought, our hands brushed. A light, accidental touch that lingered longer than either of us expected. She didn't pull away. I didn't move mine. The weight of everything unsaid, every glance, every shared smile, every quiet moment of noticing, seemed to settle there, in the simple connection of skin against skin. "I can't promise it'll be easy," she said, finally breaking the silence. "I don't need easy," I said. "I just need this." Her smile was small, but steady. She leaned her forehead briefly against mine, a gesture so intimate it almost made the world outside disappear. We stayed like that for a long while, just breathing in sync, sharing a quiet understanding that didn't need words. There was no rush, no declaration, no dramatic turning point. Only the inevitability of two people who had been orbiting the same gravity for too long to turn away. The rain had stopped. The city outside hummed softly. The radio crackled. And in the center of that hum, in that small repair shop, we existed together in a way that felt simple and terrifyingly real. When she finally pulled back, she didn't speak. She didn't have to. The touch had said everything. Trust, curiosity, fear, and the quiet collapse of everything we'd been holding back. I watched her leave, the door swinging softly behind her, and for the first time, the room didn't feel empty. The warmth of her hand stayed with me, a small, unshakable echo, proof that some things don't need words to be true. It's been months since that night, the night where silence finally became enough. The shop smells the same: oil, old wood, faint rain from some forgotten storm. But everything feels different. She still comes by, her hair streaked with silver now, eyes carrying the same weight, but softer somehow. And me, I notice differently. I notice her hands, yes, but I also notice the way she's allowed herself to pause, to lean, to stay. I notice the patience she's extended to me, the quiet trust we've earned together. We talk less than before, not because we're distant, but because words aren't always necessary anymore. The glance across a counter, the brush of a hand, a shared laugh at a cracked radio. These tiny, fragile things say more than sentences ever could. I've learned how to wait. I've learned how to be steady without rushing. And I think she's learned she doesn't have to guard every piece of herself anymore. There's a soft symmetry in it, imperfect and human, and it feels like home. The other day, she left a note on the workbench. Just a scrap of paper. "Some songs are worth the scratch." I smiled, remembering her hands brushing mine, remembering every near confession, every tension-filled pause. It's strange how love doesn't roar or demand. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly, folds into the ordinary, and leaves you stunned by its persistence. I catch myself looking for her sometimes before she's even walked in. But now it's not desperation, it's anticipation, appreciation, gratitude, for all the little moments we didn't ruin, for all the edges we didn't sharpen against each other. She notices, of course. She always notices. And we share a glance, half teasing, half tender, as if to say, we've survived ourselves and each other. And somehow, that makes everything feel lighter. Love, I've realized, is rarely dramatic. It doesn't need fireworks or perfect timing. It's measured in shared silences, quiet understanding, and the courage to keep showing up. And somehow, after all the near misses, the pauses, the unspoken truths, somehow, it's enough. The shop is empty now, the radio humming softly in the background. I run my fingers over the counter where we first touched hands, and for a moment, I can still feel her warmth. Some stories don't end with fireworks. Some end with a hand held lightly, a forehead brushed, a glance that says everything you didn't dare to say. And for us, that's more than enough. If you've ever waited for something that felt impossible, or held your breath in a moment that changed everything, remember, sometimes The quietest love is the one that lasts. What small moment would you hold forever if you could?